Many people think that the future of e-mountain biking will be modelled on the previous mountain bike one. And I disagree with that. I think e-mountain biking offers so many more opportunities. I mean, let's face it, what has actually happened to mountain biking in 20 years? We've got more plastic, less metal, more travel, less weight, less cogs, more cogs, wheel size changes and seat droppers. No, e-mountain biking has happened. And what was it that Rob Warner said?
They are literally the best thing to happen to mountain biking since mountain bike, and I stand by that.
Let's begin then by considering that this is the picture that most of us are confronted with when we're looking at the web pages of most brands' websites. E-mountain biking is no longer a subcategory for many brands. It's actually right there in the thick of it. I mean, look at these two bikes. They're pretty much identical. 3 kilos difference in weight, but a whole world of difference in performance. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, how far will these bikes merge in the years to come? Will they even become one?
I think everything's going to get smaller. I think all bikes are going to have some form of electrical capabilities in 10 years. I think there's going to be some aspect of assist or some aspect of electronic motor enhancement in all bikes in 10 years.
Let's get something straight. If you weigh 90 kilos and have got a 5 kilo backpack and are covered in mud, then a 2 kilo weight saving on your e-mountain bike ain't gonna make much difference. However, weight will be a card that the mountain bike industry deal us into the future and beyond. Where are we at with the mid-travel e-mountain bike? Is there loads more to figure out and understand with them?
Yeah, loads more, I think, especially when it comes to, it's kind of dependent on the supply chain and the technology. Like, I think the big innovations will not necessarily come from the manufacturers. It will come from the suppliers. So the big innovation will come from, battery suppliers. If they can somehow make the batteries more condensed, more powerful and lighter, like that would be a huge jump for e-mountain bikes, because everybody wants to have bigger batteries, but everybody also wants to have lighter bikes, and you cannot have both. So which one do you do? Currently, they're making bigger batteries instead of lighter bikes. Some manufacturers, they made super high-end models, which are getting pretty light. But in the middle of the market, the bikes are getting heavier and heavier and heavier because the batteries are getting bigger and bigger.
Now, many people want their eMTBs to weigh like mountain bikes, which is actually quite a good thing, but it can be overplayed because, let's face it, eMTBs are actually different tools. Now, weight is a driving force in the industry, a gram saving here, a gram saving there. But ultimately, a lot of people miss the point in that weight is actually an important part of the control of your bike. Let's have a look at a case example. Now turn the clock back to 2008 and Trek's new Session downhill bike, which went through many prototypes. One in particular, which I rode, tipped the scales at just over £30. It was 200mm travel and a bike that was sub 14 kilos. The bike was incredible. It was like no other downhill bike, but in reality, it was a proper handful in downhill situations. It was almost too light, too prone to get bounced offline in nasty places. So I'm wondering, how much lighter will future e-mountain bikes be? Well, I don't really think that the weight of the frame and the components will change that much. However, the motor and the battery certainly will. Now, if we look at downhill bikes, many people agree that they should weigh between 14 and 16 kilos. And if you look at a enduro style bike, now I'm talking standard mountain bikes here, not e-mountain bikes, most people think that enduro bikes should weigh around 14 kilos. And I don't think that it's out of the question to think that high torque, long range e-mountain bikes of the immediate future will probably weigh in around 18 to 20 kilos.
I would say right now everyone has learned how to use the given norms, regulations and specifications to the best, which means the limitation that we have in maximum power in wattage, and all the tests that we have to fulfill to be compliant. I think everyone knows how to balance with that, and customers are asking for a lot of talk for that support. And torque means energy you need to get out of the battery, and that means if you want to have range, means weight in the battery. And with that, I would say in the past 2 to 3 years, also with the integration of the batteries into the down tube, the bikes get too heavy. And I think you saw this from 21 to 23. Now some bikes have 25 kilograms. That's just too much. And I think we have to find a way together, the system suppliers and the bike manufacturers, to bring this performance that we have in a CX with a good battery in the range of 20, 21, maximum 22 kilogram. If you want to go below that, then you really have to do something to reduce maximum torque, maximum power, and also maximum capacity. Otherwise, you cannot scale down the weight of the bike without the trade-off of scaling down power and capacity. And then I would say you are in a different segment. And there are a couple of systems out there who generate or who create, I would say, not generate, create a new segment. That's small right now. But I think it has the potential to attract a new customer base.
Yes, as Klaus mentioned, the battery will have a significant impact in the future, both in its physical size and also in its capacity in watt hours. Now, that will probably allow some brands to make lighter bikes with long range too. But I don't think it's out of the question to think that in the immediate future, we're going to be seeing 20 kilo high torque bikes with 1000 watt hour batteries, and also lighter 16 kilo bikes with lower torque weighing in about 16 kilos. I think that is on the immediate horizon.
And I think we're going to see the evolution of e-bikes continue to get into two camps, in my mind. One is going to be the big battery, big motor, kind of go anywhere, lots of power, more, and I would say directed towards a recreational experience. And then there's going to be the smaller bikes with the lighter weight that's going to get comparable to current bikes, which will be more of an assist mode, which gives it a more kind of natural experience. And that's going to bring in a larger crowd of the naysayers over the next few years. I think that's going to kind of, I don't think the big motor, big battery systems are going to go away. I think they're going to find their place. And then there's going to be the small battery, smaller motor, lighter weight systems that are going to have a different spot in kind of the market. And that small motor, small battery stuff will eventually, I think, trickle into everything.
How important is it that we don't get carried away with making bikes that are super light? Because what I'm trying to say is you can lose some of the characteristics which make them special.
Make them special as we learned them as e-bikes, but on the other hand, I think those minimal assist bikes or compact assist bikes, they're bringing back that bike feeling, what we learned over the last, I don't know how many years. And so I think there's a clear need, not 15 years out, but for sure within the next couple of years, to learn about both categories. I think there clearly a demand for both bikes, and as for sure I see there clearly for high torque bikes also benefit having them at 21 kilos, 20 kilograms. Absolutely agree. I think also here there's a certain line which we should not go above, like 25 or 27 kilogram high torque bikes. I don't like them. Maybe customers or riders out there and benefiting from those more heavy bikes. I think for high torque bikes, 20, 21 kilograms is a pretty good deal. But why not having a compact assisted bike at 16 kilograms and having again a bike which feels pretty neutral and pretty much the same as we experienced over the last 20 years with regular bikes.
We now have two power category with the low power motor and the full power motor. It's going to be really exciting of how they develop. Is it a 1-to-1? Is one taking off? Is the other one? We have no idea. I would hope it's 50-50. That would be fun. There is in terms of battery and range, there is certainly way more digital tools coming in terms of better planning, because a lot of the range anxiety comes from not you don't have enough power, it's like you don't know how to use the right modes to get you home. Like we've, even in 2015, when we launched Levo, not only we had the full-on integrated everything, on the launch date, we had smart control already. You turn it on and you just say, I want to ride for 2 hours, and this thing does its job for 2 hours. I hope in 10 years from now, we have smart control 7.0 or maybe 7.3. And actually, I know we will, because to me, route planning, energy consumption planning, etc., this is all something that has a significant impact on how people use the bike, because nobody needs 1,500 watt hours in the down tube. People just want to ride for 3 to 4 hours. And it doesn't matter if you go uphill with 11 or 12 kilometers an hour. It doesn't matter at all. All you want to do, you want to ride for 3-4 hours. You want to have a decent amount of assist, and you don't want to run out of juice. Pair that with a really fun mountain bike that doesn't fail, that always functions, and pair that with some smartness that gets you home. That's pretty badass.
So yes, as John Riley of Trek says, that we're seeing a split into two camps, and we're already seeing this with Lapierre, Orbea, Specialized. But given that the lighter bike will do the same distance as the heavier bike, but the heavier bike will climb stronger and arguably descend quicker, what type of bikes will people be buying? Range and battery capacity will be a big discussion. The bikes will be available for sure, but it'll be up to you what type of rider you are.
A lot of the SL development came through test riding Levos in using the mission control app to basically shrink the power to a certain amount of power. We believe that's just the right amount of power. And then based off that, we basically measured the bikes and measured how much electricity are we using over one of our average rides we do. And then we knew exactly how big the battery needs to be. So we had like that mindset goal that we needed the range, right? We didn't want to cut short on range. And not cutting short on range means you really have to know how much electricity are you burning at what efficiency. And that was basically most of the time we would just argue on that project is how big does the battery need to be? That was number one. Number one argument on the SL. Some guys believed it can be much smaller than today's. Others had wanted it to be bigger. And then I think what we ended up with is actually pretty nice with the 320. Gives you the range you need, and you have a range extender on top.
A big question on people's minds at the minute, and what people are asking, is that if bikes such as the Levo SL and Orbea Rise weigh around 17 kilos, can they be made with more torque? Well, probably. After all, the EP8 RS in the Rise is an EP8 at the end of the day. So 16 to 17 kilo e-bikes are a real possibility, but currently only with less power. Adding torque will drain those little batteries, but what if you could have a 16 kilo bike with range and torque? Nevertheless, the issue of weight will continue to be a big subject. And going back to that Orbea, now they say the weight was achieved, the 16 kilos, because of less torque in the motor, and hence they were able to use standard mountain bike parts. Now, I guess you could argue that the difference between a 100 kilo rider and a 60 kilo one, riding that very same bike will have a big impact on reliability and torque through the system.
The same is they need to increase the maximum weight restrictions for the bike. So that means you need to increase the wall thickness on the frames. You need to make everything bigger. So if you ask like the sales guys, what does the customer want? Would they rather have a lighter bike, or would they rather have a higher max weight limit? They would take the max weight limit any day of the week, because the average customer, 80% or 90% of the customers, they probably weigh 80, 90, 100, 110, 120 kilograms. Once they've got their rucksacks on and all their gear, and for sure over the weight limit. So, you have to take into consideration that it's also from a liability perspective, Highbike and other manufacturers, they need to increase their maximum weight limit.
at that Moab event, all of the journalists, they really said, hey guys, so what do you like, what you don't like, right? Be honest. Then everybody was like, oh man, it's a little heavy. If we could only trade like 10 pounds for turbo mode, could we just trade turbo with weight? Like, I don't think we need turbo mode. But at that time in Moab, we were in deep development of the SL. So in 2015, we had renders, drawings, technical specifications, everything ready, and we're launching the first gen Levo. But in our mindset, we were actually thinking SL, and then basically you second the whole group of riders there second our belief that we believe there's room for a lightweight, less powerful, more handling machine.
It's nice that e-bikes are inclusive. And this is one of the things that I love about e-bikes as opposed to just, pure trail bikes without a motor, because anybody can get onto an e-bike and get out, get some fresh air, and start getting fitter and healthier and improving their lifestyle and improving their longevity in life. Like, people will live longer when they exercise more. They'll drop their weight. They'll want to get better as riders. They want to progress. So I see it as a really good thing to get more people onto bikes, irrespective of what they weigh or what shape they're in, because it will be the start of a journey that will take them years and maybe even become a passion, most likely, if the bikes are as good as they are now. Like, it's hard not to fall in love with the sport. So.
Wow, all this focus on performance when ultimately the rider weight is very, very key. So the bottom line is that the system weight, including the bike and the rider, is going to have a bigger impact on the performance, especially the range and the speed uphill, than the bike itself. So for the non-competitive e-mountain biker, the human element is actually more important than the bike. It seems we are building eMTBs lighter to make them more like MTBs, whereas maybe we should be looking at making them the right weight to make them better eMTBs. But still, I think a 20 kilo bike with 180 mil travel with a rangy battery and plenty of torque is still a bloody good proposition.